You are watching Co-op for Two, broadcasting live from Champaign, Illinois, Tuesday, August 2nd, 2022, around 5 p.m. So we're trying a different time slot this time. And we are playing turn 5 of the play-by-mail, murders-by-mail game, Sherlock Holmes Fellowship of Bones. If you haven't watched the previous 4 turns, you should probably leave very soon. Watch those. You can catch up with turn 6. But as a reminder, this will be about an hour-long session. We'll open up the replies from our previous turn, turn 4, and then we'll make a decision, 3 places to send our 3 investigators. And we'll submit those, and then we'll wait a week and get the replies by mail. That's how this works. If the chat could let me know if the audio and video is okay. We've got an unusual circumstance. Jonathan is not here. This may be the first stream that Jonathan has missed in a year. But we've got some detectives, some other detectives from the daytime shift, Debbie and someone named Otherworldly Ravenous Beast. Okay. So, little bit of bookkeeping. Next week, I'll be at the Gen Con board game-ish convention in Indianapolis, so there'll be no streams next week. The week after, we'll play turn 6 of this game. And in a couple of hours, we'll play this game now. Probably take us about an hour, hour and a half. And then at 7 p.m., with a short break, I'll stream the LA Noire play-by-mail, murders-by-mail case. So it's great having new people. If you want to join us for the next one, the LA case, it'll be at 7 p.m. Central Time in a couple hours from now. Last bit of bookkeeping. I recorded a 6-hour live stream running through the Board Game Geek list of games coming out at Gen Con in some form or another. You might want to check that out if you haven't, or at least skim through it. If you're going to be at Gen Con, please come up and say hello. And, oh, I see. We've got the hidden identity of Otherworldly Ravenous Beast is Steppy. Okay. Before we open up the replies, I wanted to make an important correction to our timeline that we were a little bit careless last time. So in our last replies, we got a reply from Wiggins, who went to talk to the person, Clarence Hodgson. I forget who Clarence Hodgson is. He's the footman, perhaps. And the footman gave us a breakdown of when the body was found. And when we read it the first time last week, we were careless and we jumped to a conclusion. And we were looking for timeline. And Mr. Edwards said he was going to work on his specimens. What time was that? 4:45. So I wrote down in our notes, because we were interested in establishing time of death, I wrote down initially that 5 p.m. he goes downstairs. I guess I wrote it correctly, but I thought I was thinking that was time of death. That's not time of death at all. He goes downstairs after a fight. So the fight he has with Charles Stewart is at 5 p.m., a little before, 4:45, and then he goes downstairs. And then at 7 p.m., Lord Kelvin comes out and says, "Where the hell is the speaker for this talk? Go down and fetch him." And then our footman goes, gets a lantern, goes downstairs, doesn't see anyone, but finally finds the body. So the body isn't found probably until quite a bit past 7, maybe 7:15 or so. So I've started working on updating our timeline. So 4:45 was the fight Edwards has. Then he goes downstairs. A little bit after 7 p.m., his body was found. Now that's quite important for us because, just finishing up with this timeline, when we went to the medical examiner, Watson goes to the medical examiner, and it's important that he says, look what he says here. He says, body was still warm, rigor mortis had not set in, so death had certainly occurred less than an hour before his discovery. So now that puts our time of death between 6 p.m. and 7 p.m. Okay? Time of death, 6 to 7 p.m. Now that's pretty important because our best lead is someone that's been seen leaving out the back of the arcade through a door that you need a key for. And we got that here, and that was quite important. But here it says, now that you mention it, a few minutes after 5, a young man came out and hailed a hansom cab. And we actually are tracking down. We've got a physical description. But now we've got a little bit of a problem in terms of that being our primary suspect, because that person's leaving at 5 p.m. And we're told that our guy Edwards gets into a fight at 4:45 and then goes downstairs. So he's going downstairs at 4:45, and a man is seen exiting at 5. That's a very short window for that person to be the murderer. And remember, time of death is 6 p.m. Now, the only problem there is that we're told, again, just going through previous stuff, we're told about the death. We're told there must have been quite a struggle. There's lots of stuff knocked over, but Watson's like, oh, he must have gotten killed right away. The report I heard was that death was instantaneous, says Watson. And the medical examiner says, well, likely not instantaneous, but certainly inevitable. He would have bled copiously for a while, but I expect he was immediately struck unconscious. So if you put the timeline out, that means he goes downstairs at 5, well, 4:45 or so. A man is seen leaving out the back at 5. And then he actually died sometime between 6 p.m. and 7 p.m. So either this guy knocked him, crushed his skull, and left immediately, and then our guy Edwards sort of bled out for an hour and then died an hour later, or the guy running away out the back did not commit the murder. And let's just check in with the chat. Steppy says, was the time since the murder gotten from the medical examiner or from the doctor who got close to the scene? The time of death is from the medical examiner. The medical examiner says, the medical examiner says it wasn't instantaneous. And there must have been a fight. He's got the scratches, etc. And then the doctor on the scene says rigor mortis hadn't set in, so death occurred less than an hour before discovery. And then the footman gives us the time of discovery at 7. So I guess, Steppy, if Joseph Lister, the doctor on scene, is lying, then maybe we don't believe this. But he didn't find the body, the footman did, so I have no reason to suspect him. So now I'm thinking the guy who ran away is not the murderer, is what I'm thinking. But he may have witnessed something, so we probably still want to track him down. But it makes me think he's probably not the murderer. And Steppy is saying, well, doctor could be lying to cover someone. He could be, but don't forget that the footman discovered the body. So I don't see how I'm not sure we're told how the doctor got called onto the scene. But apparently, I mean, you could imagine that the footman goes down, finds the body, then runs up and calls for doctors and whatever. I didn't want to step in, but I ran right away to find Monroe, the butler. He found Lord Kelvin, called the police, and then somehow the other doctor got on the scene. Makes sense, though. You go upstairs, this place is full of doctors. One of the doctors comes in. So I still think the guy who ran out the back is an important witness. He may be the thief that's been stealing stuff. Remember, we got more clues about people stealing stuff. All right, so let's see where we sent people at the end of the last turn. We sent Watson to talk to Charles Stewart of the Lineage Society. That's the person he got into the fight with right before he went downstairs. We sent Wiggins to the central carriage, hoping that they might have a log of the cab that the person escaping out the back took. We know the person escaping out the back got into a cab at around 5. And then we sent Miss Hudson to talk to the custodian, one of the people who has a key to that back door. I'm not sure why we didn't talk to Mr. Monroe, the butler of the society, since he seems to be a little more involved. But those are the 3 places we went. We're curious who had keys to the back door. Both of these are tracking down this person who ran out the back door, who I now think is probably not a murderer, but still significant. All right. So we've got our timeline, and it's time to open our reply here. All right, here we go. If you'll remember, the game shows us where we sent each person. Watson went to the Lineage Society president, which should be Charles Stewart. Wiggins went to the cab, which is over here somewhere. And Hudson visited Ronald Prescott. Oh, Prescott, is that? Prescott, yes, the custodian. Okay, here we go. First up is Wiggins, who went to the carriage depot. The central carriage depot is a dangerous place to walk, what with road apples beneath your feet and cabs whizzing by like to break your neck if you don't jump out of the way in time. Lucky for me, Mr. Cooper, the general manager, took me in hand right quick and pulled me into his office. He's a short man with a great lot of hair sticking out in all directions, but a bald pate smack in the middle of it. His office was tidy, with the wall behind his desk covered by little pigeonholes filled with folded paper, and a horseshoe hung over the door. So, you're the indomitable Mr. Wiggins, are you? Mr. Holmes told me you might be by. How can I help you? I want to know about people coming and going from Burlington House on the August 4th in the afternoon. He opened a great ledger book on his desk and leafed back a few pages. That was the day with all the rain, wasn't it? We had a lot of custom that day. People don't like to walk in the wet. Oh, dear me, there must have been something going on out there that evening. There are at least 24 cabs letting out at Burlington House. No, we didn't think about that. Lots of people dropping people off at Burlington House for the lecture. But what about people picking up? Yeah, there was meant to be a big speech that night, only the speaker turned up dead. What about people leaving, especially around 5 o'clock? He drummed his fingers on his desk, his lips moving silently as he read. Again, there's a great lot of pickups, though most of them are from a bit later in the evening. Hello, what's this? I got a note here from a driver asking that his hansom be cleaned special. He had a pickup near there just after 5 and complained that the customer left smears of some red-brown liquid on the floor and door handle. Oh, Bud, maybe this is the murderer. Red-brown liquid? Couldn't that be blood? I suppose it very well could. Let's see. Picked up from Burlington Arcade, dropped off in Whitechapel. Where specifically? Somewhere along Aldgate High Street is all I can tell you. And what's that cabbie's name? Tim Stringfellow. He'll be off duty now, but you might find him at home. He lives just off Southwark Bridge Road. An irascible sort, but he'll answer your questions right enough. If he balks, tell him I'll fire him if he doesn't help you. Mr. Cooper said this last with a smile that made me wonder if he was joking or not. I thanked him for his time and left. Okay, well, that's pretty serious. All right, let's make our notes. We got Wiggins. Turn 5. I guess this is reply 4. Central carriage. Okay, so what does he tell us? He says, what's this? Okay. Cab drop off at Aldgate High Street. In Whitechapel. All right, and he tells us the cabbie's name. Cabbie is Tim Stringfellow. Southwark Bridge Road. Not on Southwark Bridge Road, but off, right off Southwark Bridge Road. Okay, and then brown, red mess in cab. Was it blood? The thing is, you're a cabbie, right? You would know it was blood, wouldn't you? My gut tells me it's not going to be blood. Floor and door handle. But boy, if it's blood, that's pretty serious. Especially since we know he wasn't killed instantly. We know he didn't die till 6 p.m. So if this guy has blood on his hands, like he's not looking at the body after it died. He's looking at a body while it's still alive. All right. Tim Stringfellow, Southbridge Road, Whitechapel. So before we move on, let's see if we can't locate this Tim Stringfellow in the directory. So Stringfellow, we've got SE23. In the directory. Let's see if that matches the idea that he's right off Southwick Bridge Road. So Southeast 23 is here, and there's Southwark Bridge Road here. So that's going to be for sure Tim Stringfellow's address, the cabbie. Now what about Whitechapel? Do we know where Whitechapel is? Is it not in London? I'm trying to... Does this map cover Whitechapel in the east that we don't know? Well, here's Aldgate High Road. Sorry. Here's Aldgate High Road. Oh, Whitechapel. Okay, so this map, unlike the normal Sherlock Holmes consulting detective maps, which don't have an east, at least not in the base game, here we do. So I think somewhere here on Aldgate High Street in Whitechapel, So you might, if we wanted to write down some possible addresses here where he might have got dropped off, it would be like E11, E16, E12, maybe even E17. Okay, so these addresses in the east off Aldgate High Street in Whitechapel. And the cab driver might be able to tell us exactly where, and the cab driver might tell us whether it was really blood. Okay, that was a good lead. And Debbie Levy reminds us, of course, that yes, Whitechapel is Jack the Ripper. Let's remember. Debbie Levy says, sounds like the murderer was around 5 p.m. after all. Could rigor mortis have been delayed somehow? Okay, well, we don't have to, we don't need any convoluted mystery. The medical examiner says, hey, he didn't die instantly. He would have been knocked out instantly, but it could have taken him a while to die. So it's quite possible that at 5 p.m. he's smashed on the head and left to bleed out and die for an hour and dies at 6 p.m. That is certainly possible. Certainly possible. So this guy could have killed him, hit him on the head at 5, left, and then it took this guy an hour to bleed out and died at 6 p.m. That's all within the realm of possibility. All right, next reply. Here is, I guess we should have started with Watson. Here's Watson's reply. He went to visit the Lineage Society, Charles Stewart, who got into a fight with our guy Edwards. Charles Stewart, FLS, is a large man, nearly 20 stone at a guess, with a thick mustache and a double chin. As president of the Lineage Society, his office is larger than most within Burlington House, but still rather cramped. As seems to be the norm with geologists and paleontologists, it is littered with fossils and rock samples of all sizes and descriptions. He sprang to his feet to greet me. I suppose you are here because you suspect me of killing Warren Edwards. Well, I cannot yet say who Mr. Holmes does or does not suspect, but you have been known to argue with Mr. Edwards in the past. His pudgy fingers twisted at the edges of his mustache. I did more than argue with him. I denounced him as the fraud that he was. Arrogant Aravists like him care more about cutting a dashing figure than advancing scientific knowledge. I will admit he found some good fossils, but he was as likely to sell them as study them, and scarcely knew what they were. This whole speech about Brontosaurus excelsius, when his specimens are clearly Apatosaurus bones, it beggars belief. Was the subject of your argument the afternoon, was that the subject of your argument the afternoon of the murder? Yes, I know it looks bad for me, and I imagine the finer points are lost even on a man of science like yourself. But I could never seem to help becoming infuriated with him, especially after a few brandies. Witnesses said that after your argument you left the sitting room. Where did you go? I was on my way back to my office here when I ran into Professor Samuel Doherty. He was the one who gave Edwards his start in field work and mentored him through his early years. Such was my dudgeon that I berated the dear professor for championing Edwards. I questioned his judgment in advancing such an addle-pated braggart. I rather think I owe the professor an apology. We were still in the hallway talking when all the hubbub began. A pregnant pause then ensued. I let him fidget, knowing that a guilty conscience will sometimes prompt an inadvisable comment. He stared me down with admirable aplomb for several moments, but I could see sweat on his forehead. Finally, he spoke. I held Mr. Edwards in light regard, Dr. Watson. He did more damage to the field than good. a field of inquiry to which I've devoted my entire life. Darwin himself spoke within these walls, and Edward's presence here felt like an affront. But I did not kill him. Well, then I'll take no more of your time, Mr. Stewart. Good day, Doctor. Well, not much here, huh? He says he ran into a Professor Samuel Doherty, who gave Edwards his start, so he might know a little bit more about the background of Edwards, this person, this professor. But he sounds like the two of them are alibying each other. If you were a real detective, you might chase down those alibis and confirm them, but this does seem like probably a pretty good alibi. And he seems believable. I mean, he's getting into a fight with this guy, but he's not going to kill him over it. Okay. Well, it's more than an hour. He would have had to be here between the fight, on my way back to my office, I ran into Samuel Doherty. That's between 5 p.m. The body's found at 7 p.m. So that's 2-hour gap between the fight and when the hubbub was. All right, well, let's make our notes. So Watson, reply for Charles Stewart. So let's see, his alibi is between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. He's talking with Samuel Doherty, who's Edward's mentor. That is a long time, but maybe he may be leaving out some steps, I guess. Make a note, long time, in case we think he's not telling the truth about going directly on the way back to his office. His office is like 2 minutes away. Okay, but I think we believe this guy, don't we? I don't have a bad feeling about him. All right, and now let's see what the custodian tells Mrs. Hudson. Mr. Prescott's home is a small flat off Blackfriars Road just north of St. George's Circus. He wasn't in when I called, but his wife Rebecca was very welcoming. The flat was cluttered and homey with lots of trinkets Mr. Prescott had picked up during his first career as a sailor. There were semaphore flags on the walls, a Chinese compass, and a big statue of a man with an elephant head. Is that Ganesh? Most of the furniture was new and good enough that I wondered how a caretaker's salary could pay for it. Interesting. The whole place smelled strongly of cinnamon and other spices I couldn't place. Miss Prescott poured me a cup of tea in a genuine bone china cup and apologized that her husband wasn't home. If you want to talk to him, your best bet is to go by the East India Docks. Those science types at the Royal Society keep him hopping all day. But of an evening, he goes by the docks to visit our boy, Ron Jr., who's the harbor master. They like to sit around and share a sniff of rum and talk. That sounds nice, I said. Did your husband say anything to you about the murder that happened at the Royal Society? Oh, he doesn't know much more than what was in the papers. Coppers wouldn't let him near the crime scene, not even to tidy up after they'd all left. Who knows what state that room is in? And all the high and mighty lords of science wouldn't bother to tell my Ron what had happened. No, just chastised him for some door being left unlocked. What he never touched in his life. Okay, chastised him for a door being left unlocked, which he never touched in his life. They don't appreciate all the hard work he does for them. They don't. What door was that? Oh, it opens out into the alley behind Burlington Arcade, he said. No one ever uses it. Ron said he didn't even know where the key was. Did Ron know the victim? She laughs. Ha, that's rich. No, none of those types bother to talk to my Ron. He's beneath their notice until they need some mess cleaned up. She laughed. I sipped my tea. It was quite good with some flavor I didn't recognize. I asked Miss Prescott about it. Oh, that's cardamom. My boy Ron Jr. gets all manner of spices and teas coming in from India down at the docks. He's not nicking from the cargo, mind you. Sometimes the sailor will bring something home in his footlocker to trade on the side. Harbor master gets first pick. What a lovely benefit of what I'm sure is a difficult job. Thank you very much for the tea. I'll have to see about picking up some for myself. I went by Pepper and Company on the way home to see if they could find any. They wanted 5 shillings an ounce for it. It was a lovely tea, but that's nothing short of highway robbery. So we got a little taste. Someone's got their first taste of cardamom, a very interesting spice that you can buy in little pods and ground up. Very distinctive taste. I've made some cardamom cookies occasionally. All right, well, there's not much here. It sounds like it's another little bit of a hint about someone had the key to this door. So Mrs. Hudson, reply 4 was Ronald Prescott's wife. She says we can find Ronald at the East India Docks, which we might look up in the directory to get an address. She says they have a son, Ron Jr., who is harbor master. Not clear why we would care about that. And then he was yelled at. Door to arcade left open. This just sounds like our person that we saw escaping at 5 p.m. rushed out, opened the door, and left it open. And so they've yelled at the custodian for leaving it open, but we know he didn't. He never touched it in his life, she says. He never uses it, and we're told that Ron Prescott doesn't know where the key is. This was one of the reasons we were trying to talk to him. We were trying to locate all the people who could have keys to this door. And we're told here that we said no one ever used it. Ron said he didn't even know where the key was. Well, that's not great news for us. It would be better for us if he could account for it, so it couldn't have been one of the stolen keys. All right. Well, those are our 3 replies. Not the best. And now we have to decide where to send our 3 investigators. So we could keep following the Whitechapel cab lead. That seems logical to me. And it seems logical that we would send Wiggins to keep following down this lead. He's the street savvy guy. Let's have him talk to the cabbie, I think, and see if that really was blood. If it is, then that's our number 1 suspect. And maybe he can give us the exact address where he dropped off the person into Whitechapel. So how do you guys feel about sending Wiggins to follow up with the cab driver? Tim Stringfellow. But then Watson and Miss Hudson, let's see if we can find the India Docks location where we would go if we wanted to. Docks, the East India Docks is southeast 44. Okay, so I'm just going to write that in, southeast 44. So if we wanted to continue tracing down the custodian, we could go to southeast 44 and catch him. But it feels like we've gotten, I mean, I'm not opposed to doing that eventually, but that does not seem like a very promising lead now. So Debbie says, Wiggins to the cabbie, definitely. That makes sense. Okay. Do we want to check if any of our other persons of interest so far have an address near Whitechapel? That's a pretty good idea. Okay, let me just put in first our first location, which is Wiggins is going to go to southeast 23 to visit Tim Stringfellow, the cabbie. And let me just mark that on our map. Wiggins is green. Southeast 23. Okay, so now Steppy had an interesting idea, which is, do any of our other people live in Whitechapel? I think that's a very good question. Let's look up this one person we haven't finished looking, we got note of. Charles Stewart says he was arguing with Samuel Doherty. Let's see if we can locate Samuel Doherty. Samuel Doherty is Northwest 33. Northwest 33. Okay, so following up Steppy's idea, let's find our list of addresses. We're told that one of these guys was at the Boodle Club. We didn't write down that address. Let's see if we can. This is why it does pay to get some of these addresses as soon as you hear of a place. The Boodles Club is Southwest 6. Okay, so here's a list of some people. The Boodle Club, Southwest 6. Mr. Monroe, the butler, didn't write down his address. Mr. Monroe, the butler, there's one Monroe, Southwest 29. Prescott's house we went to. So I don't see anyone who lives in the East on our list. I'm just updating some addresses here. The Sheridan Club is Northwest 15. I don't remember what we got sent to about that. Okay, so no one that we know of lives in Whitechapel. So what are our options of where we want to send Miss Hudson and Watson? We've got a relative of Mr. Edwards that we haven't yet been to. The librarian. We've already gone to Prescott. We went to Cavendish, right? That's where we just went. No, we went to Charles Stewart. We did go to the Footman. Did we go to the Footman? I thought we did. Why is it not on my list? The Footman we did go to. Southeast 13. Okay. Charles Stewart we just went to. Any thoughts from the channel where you want to send people? So let's think about our initial set of witnesses, because remember, our thematic role-playing approach was that we should talk to witnesses early before they... So there were witnesses, that would be a good place to go to first. And then there were people who had access to that key out the back door. So if we want to follow down those leads, witnesses and keys to the back door, he was recently arguing with a Martin Cavendish and a Sir John Young. So we haven't visited those people yet. So right before he was killed, he was in a fight with Charles Stewart. We visited him, but there are two people that he argues with frequently, Martin Cavendish and John Young. We haven't visited those people yet. And then we've got a whole bunch of people we're told had keys. And I do think that's a reasonable set of leads to look for. And that was... Who told us who has keys? Who would have a key? Okay. Custodian, who we just talked to, has a key. The librarian, and I might have a key somewhere in a desk drawer. So we haven't... This is the John Lawson we're talking about, talking to, scene of the crime, who's super nervous. Super nervous. We could go to his office at some point to directly talk to him to see if he has his key. And then we've got the butler of this place, who was contacted early on when the body was found, I believe. I think I favor pursuing these keys. Steppy says, the guy who hired us had a key, right? Yeah, that's John Lawson right here. He's saying right here, who has a key? He says, Prescott, the librarian, Custodian Prescott, the librarian, who's Mr. Keith, and I might have a key. This is John Lawson. So we could go to John Lawson's office. We haven't, he's the one who hired us, but we could go to his door. It makes sense that Watson might be talking to these people, though. Hudson is not the best at this. We could send Hudson to talk to the relative of Edwards. Or the butler. Where do we hear about the butler? Monroe. We hear a couple times. Were you present for the argument with Mr. Stewart? No, but I heard about it after the fact. I was remonstrating with Mr. Monroe, the head butler, about the missing stuff. So the head butler is someone who knows about the missing jewelry and stuff. That's kind of interesting to us. That little side story seems related to our stuff. And I think Monroe came up some other place too. I didn't step in the blood. I ran right away to find Mr. Monroe, the butler. He went to find Lord Kelvin and ring the police. So, but here's Monroe, the butler, making another appearance. Okay, Stebby says, I'm in favor of pursuing the Kiwi, but could we get a directory lookup on those two potential witnesses our guy fought with? Let's not say fought, let's say argued with. You mean argued with regularly. Okay, Martin Cavendish and Sir John Young, both are members of the society. Okay, so let's see if we can locate them. Are they in Burlington House, or do they have their separate addresses? Let's see. All right, if we look them up in the directory, let's see what addresses we get for them. Cavendish. I'd rather visit them at their offices at the Burlington place if we knew what department they worked in. Cavendish is Southwest 11. Oh, we already wrote that down. Cavendish is Southwest 11. And John Young is Northwest 72. That's at their homes. Whether they had offices, we don't know. It might be actually useful for us to mark whose offices we know. So the library we know, B3 is Keith, the librarian. And then the Linnean Society we know is Stewart. I'm not sure if we know the other people, if we've overlooked it. And the president is Lawson. President, is he the president or the secretary? Secretary. I don't think we're told what... I don't think we're told what positions Martin Cavendish and John Young had in the Burlington House. All right, time to make our decision. Miss Hudson would make sense to talk to a butler. Perhaps Watson could go to Lawson or one of the other witnesses. All right, so should we send Miss Hudson to talk to the butler, Monroe? He's not... Yeah, let's send Miss Hudson to talk to the butler. Now, the butler doesn't have an office here, does he? Sitting room, secretary. No, we're going to meet him at his home. So Southwest 29, Miss Hudson is talking to him. Monroe, the butler, and the reason we're doing that is because he was the first person contacted when the body was found, and because he was talking about these thefts, and he might give us a lead on the thefts. And then what if we send Watson to the librarian with the key? He's already in the Burlington house, so it does make sense. He's just talked to Charles Stewart. It makes sense to have him just walk across the hall to the librarian, who we know has a key. What do you guys think about that? Who has a key? The librarian, the custodian, and I might have a key. Or we could have Watson talk to Josh Lawson, who's hired us. The librarian may know more about the other members. Okay, let's do that. Let's send him to the librarian. So the librarian is at B3. So we're sending Watson to B3, which is Mr. Keith, the librarian. Okay, those are all reasonable. We're following up the cabbie lead, and then we're going to people who were at the scene of the crime and who might have a key to the back door. I like it. All right, here we go. So we're doing Fellowship of the Bones. Watson is going to B3. Wiggins is going to Southeast 23. And Hudson is going to Southwest 29 to the butler. Are we all okay with this? I think we are. I think this seems reasonable. There's no one that we're dying to talk to super quickly, right? I think that's right. Okay, here we go. Submitting the move. The location Southwest 20, this is we never seen before. The location Southwest 29 has a few different things Miss Hudson might look into. Please describe briefly what you want them to investigate, like interview Jones or look for man in gray. What? What on earth? What's gone wrong here? Southwest 29 has different things. So how did we get the address Southwest 29? We got it because we looked up Mr. Monroe, right? The butler. It's Southwest 29 is not an address of any of our allies. Let's make sure it's still Mr. Monroe. Let's make sure I got that right. Monroe. Oh, I got it wrong. Monroe's at Northwest 29. Okay, so I got it wrong. I wrote it wrong. Monroe is at Northwest 29. So let's see if we can I'm a little scared now. Okay, so it may be that that's the generic reply when it's a place you shouldn't be visiting. Like there's no entry for it, so it's asking. It's a very interesting idea. I'm guessing that's what it is, but now let's see if it'll let me back out of this. So where did I write down? I just wrote it here, I guess. Okay, so it's not Southwest 29. It's Northwest 29 is Monroe. Northwest 29. Okay, so I'm guessing this is like a very nice way of saying you really have no reason to go here. Or but now, oh boy. Can I back up? Okay, it's letting us redo it. Okay, good. That was scary. Okay, so Watson goes to B3. Wiggins goes to Southeast 23. And Miss Hudson goes to Northwest 29. So even though it said there's multiple things she could be asking about, tell us what you want, I think it's more like, we don't know why you want to go there. You better explain why, and maybe a human will look into it. Now it makes me want to make sure that Tim Stringfellow is really at Southeast 23, although it didn't say not to. Southeast 23. Okay, let's see what happens now. Okay. Whew, is right. All right. We're playing this on 8-2. All right. There's lots of leads left for us to look into. Let's mark on our pages with the colors. So we already did the cabbie's house. Watson is continuing in his trip through Burlington House at B3. And then Miss Hudson we sent to Northwest 29. Let's find that. Northwest 29, Miss Hudson. Okay, she was already in the neighborhood recently. All right, our main attention is on that cabbie, so it makes sense that we're doing that as much as we can. Debbie says, one thing I was wondering, are all these replies pre-generated, or does someone have to come up with an answer if you do anything unusual? Well, I think we saw the answer to that. I think they're almost all pre-generated, though we're told in the instructions for the game that our adversary could react to things we do. So there may be some more complicated stuff. And I think we just saw what happens if you try to go somewhere that the game does not have prepared answers for. That little thing about tell us why, I think that would ideally get sent to the designer, who would say, they thought of something I didn't. They're going to check if someone went to this pharmacy, and so they might conceivably write a custom reply into the system so that the next person who tries to go there, or maybe if 5 people all want to go to this place, then they might take a look at why these people want to go there. But I think we basically just saw what happens when you try to go to a place that the game doesn't have a prepared answer for. All right. It's been an hour. We'll end here. If you're going to join me for the LA Noir case, I'll see you in an hour. If you're at Gen Con, I'll see you at Gen Con. Please do come up and say hello. Debbie says it would be cool if they wrote custom replies. It does make sense that that would be one of the advantages of doing it with an app, is you could see when people wanted to go someplace. You release a game, and then in the beginning you pay close attention to places people want to go that you haven't have pre-planned replies for, and actually write those replies. It makes sense. All right. So I'll see you in an hour, or next week, or whenever you join me next. But LA Noire coming up in 1 hour.